Merry Christmas, Aggies and college football fans. Welcome back to another video. Signing day has come and passed. We're in the signing period, part one of the two. But it kind of just feels like a rolling situation here with transfer portal window and multiple signing periods. It's a chaotic cluster of a December through February for college football fans, coaches, and players, everyone involved. But Texas A&M finally got some pens to paper and have about 16 signees as of this week. So it's the pre-Christmas episode. Buckle in. We're going to go through some of these guys. And what I want to do is give a grade for the way Texas A&M recruited each position group. And keep in mind, I'm going to grade these, but I'm a very humble opinionator. I am just a fan, just like many of you are. Don't take my word as golden. I'm just going to give you a very passionate, obsessive, borderline obsessive fan's opinion. And that's what you're going to get today, Ags. So let's go ahead and check out these names. So it's a big day. A lot of these names, and my philosophy has always been I'm not really going to delve deep into any of these guys until they're signed, or unless it's just like a huge commitment, like a Ruben Owens kind of guy. I really don't talk too much about each individual player until now. So 16 names have been signed, and we're going to go through each position group. So Dalton Brooks, going to play safety at Texas A&M, was a high-level running back and safety out in Shiner, Texas. The only safety that A&M has gotten in this class so far, this class is it's very small, so there's a chance things can still get added to it in time, but we're going to act as if this is it right now, so we're going to grade with room to improve, I guess. But Dalton Brooks, the only safety you get, we're going to give that a solid B. You only got one. You have three great rotational safeties coming back. I say great, but great potential safeties coming back in Jacoby Matthews, Bryce Anderson, and Jordan Gilbert. These are three guys that have seen the field a lot, so you didn't have a dire need for someone to play right away, but you get someone else to keep cooking in that position group and grow. So it's really good to get that other body in there. You really wanted that second backup to play with those two guys, especially with the way DJ Durkin utilizes these guys. He brings them down to the line of scrimmage a lot, sometimes runs three safeties, runs them as kind of a nickel. Really good to see a guy like Dalton Brooks get into this class. Not a dire need, but there was definitely room for players there. We're going to give it a B for safeties. Micah T is the only receiver in this class thus far, and because there's only one, well, let me talk about Micah first. Seems like the kind of guy that Jimbo typically likes to go for. Versatile, small, explosive playmaker at receiver. He's going to play receiver at A&M, though he played DB in high school. But he's going to play receiver here. Kind of in the vein of an Aniyah Smith type, Yul Keith Brown type. Smaller guy, lower classification. He's a 4-star. He's a pretty decently rated guy, but he's definitely not in those upper echelon headliner names. But he's a guy that you're happy to have, but you only got one, and you've lost a lot of receivers. You didn't know how much you were going to lose throughout most of this recruiting cycle, but at this point where you really wish you had multiple and you only get one, I'm going to give it a C+, and it's not because of Micah himself. This guy has a lot of potential, but you really wish you would have gotten one of those, not necessarily upper echelon guys. You definitely wish you would have gotten multiple, but maybe another guy to couple with Micah here. So we're going to give it a C+, really good player. You wish you had a little bit more. Going down to cornerback, we have Bravion Rogers, who decommitted for a couple of days after visiting LSU, only to recommit to Texas A&M and never waver from then on. And then you have Javen Thomas, another guy. These guys both kind of teased us because Javen Thomas, in his last game of the year, I believe it was, he was wearing TCU gloves. And that's with TCU having all the momentum in the world, making the playoff, getting a bunch of players, having a better recruiting class than TCU maybe is used to having. He scared us. And on his letter of intent table at the end of the year, he had a TCU helmet there combating the Texas A&M helmet. So he made us sweat it, just like Bravion Rogers scared us for about 2 days. But ultimately, they both end up Aggies in a position of growing need. Because throughout most of this cycle, you didn't necessarily think you were going to lose Jalen Jones. You didn't think you were going to lose Josh Moten. You didn't think you were going to lose Brian George. You hoped you wouldn't lose Denver Harris. But as the year progressed, and especially when the transfer portal window opened, all of a sudden there was a dire need for corner. And the great thing about this haul is you get two solid guys. Two guys that maybe aren't the top corner in the world, but these two guys are dogs. They're gonna have an impact, especially on the practice field and camp. They're gonna force competition, but you get two quality players here in a position of dire need. Now, I will say this. You wish you would have had a couple more guys here with all of the losses there have been at corner. But with guys like Tony Grimes in the transfer portal and others, there's a chance you fill this with other needs by other means. You only got two. I wish it was 3 or 4. And because of that, I'm going to give it a B. Let's give it a B+, because the quality of these guys is really good. You're really happy to get two quality corners here in this class. So we're going to give this a B+. And now I'm going to break my rule here. Hicks and Tamuanu Pepe, am I saying that right? Tamuanu Pepe? I think I'm saying it right. They're not signed yet. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to consider them part of the class. Breaking my rule here. Famous last words? I certainly hope not, because David Hicks is a huge grab. Well, let me talk about these three guys individually. David Hicks, Tamuanu Pepe, and Rylan Kennedy. Damon Stanford, he's listed as an edge, but seems like he's going to be more of an outside linebacker kind of guy. Whereas Rylan Kennedy, though they have similar weight and skill sets, kind of projects more as an edge rusher, a little bit less polished of a player. Only 1 year of varsity football under his belt, late bloomer. But let's start from the top with David Hicks. Now I'm going to scroll to the bottom here for a second to showcase something, if it's on this page. All right, so these are the highest rated recruits Texas A&M has ever signed coming out of high school. Walt, Miles, Reggie. And the number 4 right there is David Hicks. That is how highly sought after this kid is out of high school. And I haven't watched tape yet because I want to do that on camera for y'all, and I'm very excited to watch his tape. But from what I hear, this is can't miss talent. And for a team with the D-line assets that Texas A&M has, David Hicks stands out. He's that good, apparently, allegedly. We'll find out. But he's rated that good, and usually these 5-star players are pretty surefire things, usually. Rest in peace, Damon Demas. I wish you the best. But anyway, in a lineup that features Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, Anthony Lucas, Brownlow Dindy, Ian White, David Hicks is upper echelon within that group. So it's pretty huge that Texas A&M locks this guy in, and for the purposes of this video, we're going to grade it as if he's there. So you have your star, and you didn't need him, but you got him, and that's huge. Tamuanu Pepe is a specialist, and I'll kind of put him and Rylan Kennedy in that specialist category for now. Tamuanu Pepe is like a mountain. Remember Mount Cody? They called him Mount Cody, Terrence Cody from Alabama a few years back, or like Vince Wilfork. He's a specialist. He's a clogger in the middle, take up 2, maybe 3 blockers if he pans out to be the best that he could be. I mean, just eats in that interior line of scrimmage. Situational guy, probably for short yardage situations, first downs versus the right scheme if you want to, but a really cool piece that Texas A&M doesn't have on their roster right now. They have McKinley Jackson. They have Isaiah Rakes. Walter Nolan plays inside quite a bit. None of these guys are the same profile as Tamuanu Pepe. So a little bit of a unique piece to get. And then Rylan Kennedy, edge is kind of a position of need. You have Malik Silla. You have Ian White. LT Overton was playing some stand-up edge later in the year. And maybe it's not his most natural position, though he can play it. You're really happy to get another edge player to go along with those guys, to compete with these guys. And as I've said before, the great thing about Rylan Kennedy is he's a late bloomer. You get him late in your cycle when you didn't have the best cycle that you've had in the Jimbo era. You had a smaller cycle. This is definitely the kind of guy you want to just take a chance on, because late bloomer into football, late getting into football, sky's the limit. You don't know what this guy can be with how little he's shown, but how rapidly he's ascended. Probably has a really low floor too, unfortunately, But that's just the nature of taking a gamble on a guy like this late in your cycle. And I think it's a great gamble to take with what you already have at defensive line. So between these three guys, based on what Texas A&M needed and already had, and they didn't need D linemen, but they got pieces that they didn't really have. I'm going to have to give this D-line haul an A-. The first A that I've given out so far to a three-man D-line haul. And that's just because each one of these pieces stands out amongst what Texas A&M already has. So once again, Texas A&M bringing home a great D-line haul. DLU? Blue? No, we're not calling it that, but DLU. All right, moving on to linebacker, and obviously we've been talking about it. This is like the premier position of need, especially after Ruben Owens made his commitment. This was like the one we were all looking at. A little bit at receiver, a little bit at corner, more on the depth side of things. But as far as players you need now to play, linebacker was number one by a significant margin, a fairly significant margin. And here you have three guys, Damian Sanford, Chance Johnson, and Torian York. I'm going to talk about these three guys, and then I'm going to bring up the black cloud that kind of reigns over this. I think you might know what I'm getting at. But Damian Sanford, I don't know too much about him, but I do know that he's extremely athletic. He kind of played edge outside linebacker, but he's going to be an outside linebacker. He's going to be a linebacker at Texas A&M just by necessity. You're happy to have him. He's the highest rated linebacker we signed, and you needed him. You needed to hold on to this guy. Chance Johnson was a last-minute commitment to Texas A&M, committed on signing day, and it's a piece that maybe you didn't think you were going to have the whole cycle, but you add on at the last minute as things kind of develop or don't develop. Same goes for Torian York. And I don't know about you guys. Have you guys watched the Torian York post-signing press conference where he's full of emotion, talking about how these last few years have been extremely hard? He's been He's been working towards the goal of getting signed to such a program as Texas A&M, and just outpouring of emotion. There's something special about this kid just in that presser, although I haven't watched his tape yet, which, like I said, I'm going to do on camera for y'all. I have a feeling about this kid just from that interview, but, that's just maybe prisoner of the moment. Okay, so these three guys seem to be very athletic, guys that can really move at linebacker. But here's the thing you missed out on, and it's the great cloud hanging over this class, really, and that's Anthony Hill, who you had locked in and committed for a time, only to lose to your biggest in-state rival. And because of that, and not the guys you get here, because you're happy to get all these guys, there's a chance these guys can all pan out. These are some good players. But when you lose that surefire thing in Anthony Hill that can play right away, and you missed out on Perkins last year, who turned out to be a superstar in your most dire position of need, I'm going to have to give this haul a C. And it's not because of these guys. It's because of what could have been and what you missed out on based on what you needed. And that was someone to make an impact now. And we hope one of these guys could be that. But these guys are probably going to take some time to pan out and become what they can become. But I'm very excited about all of them, especially Torian York. I mean, go watch that. Find it on Twitter or something. Just type in Torian York. It'll probably come up. Really cool to hear him talk about his work ethic. I mean, it just seems like the kind of guy you want on your team. A guy that can develop into an emotional leader. So, high hopes for him. But the other guys, I mean, let's see what they do. Moving on to the offensive line, Holland. We're just going to group it together like I did D-line. Not edge, not inside, not outside. We're just going to call it O-line. I would say that there's not necessarily a direct need for a replacement player on the offensive line, because you have from left to right one or two or maybe three players that have played each position and have experience at each position. Some have shown to be elite at times, but none have shown to be elite consistently, at least in the most recent stretch of time that we saw. Layden Robinson probably had his best stretch the year before, 2022 and 2021. Same probably goes for Fothery. And obviously Foster, his year was kind of derailed by injury and sickness. And he had just a horrible run of things this year. But at left guard, you have Moko, who is obviously my favorite, and I know many of y'all's favorite to become that left guard Aggie, who is serviceable, though we know he has his issues, but hey, you've been around for so long, so much experience. Let's see what you can become. At center, you have two guys. At left tackle, you have Trey Zune, who improved over the year. And maybe at that tackle's position, you can talk someone into having like a competition there. But Trey Zune did improve over the year, and we did see the best performance in the last game of the year. And we did see the best of Jordan Moko before he went out for season. We saw a lot of potential in him. So what I'm getting at here is we didn't have a dire immediate plug-in need, but what you get with this haul of four guys are guys that can go in and compete right away. Guys that can go in and make this room better right away. And not necessarily by playing on a down-to-down basis, though these guys are talented. They could bust onto the scene and become players right away. You have guys that are there to compete in camp, in spring, and in practice. And guys that just add depth and add talent to a room where we struggled last year. Chase Basantis, TJ Shanahan, two inside guys that are pretty good size, probably play guard, and if you had to play him at tackle, you probably could, but probably going to play guard at Texas A&M. Chase Basantis, highly rated guy, coming out of the New Jersey area, and then I'll go ahead and segue down into Nikhil Bertrand out of the Philly area. Both recruited by Elijah Robinson, who's from the Northeast. I mean, thank God for this guy. He is such a solid recruiter. He recruits this area very well. It's like a pipeline at this point. Hold on to Elijah Robinson as long as we can. But Chase Basantis is just going to be an absolute dog. He's very likely to pan out as a player. I mean, he's just a really good player. But then TJ Shanahan is an absolute nasty player. I mean, everybody raves about how this guy just is violent at the point of attack and consistently willing to bring the heat. A lot of problems with a lot of O-linemen is they're a little soft. They're not necessarily aggressive enough to pan out at the highest possible level. That is not an issue with TJ Shanahan, and it's really not an issue with Chase Basantis. Colton Thomason is a guy that's from my neck of the woods, Smithson Valley in Spring Branch, Texas, near San Antonio. I have some friends or some cousins that go to school with him. So the one gripe about Thomason, and it's really hard to find anything negative about him, even among scouting reports. But the one negative complaint was that he was a little soft, even for his height, carried a little bit too much padding. But over the last year, he's cleaned it up, and he looks really good going into this spring semester. And I don't know if he's an early enrollee. I don't know that. I don't know that. I'm not getting at that. But I'm saying at this point in time, Colton seems to have overcome his biggest flaw, and that's being a little soft. So just a mammoth of a guy that can play left tackle, and Texas A&M has been low on tackles when it comes to O-line depth and players. Really good to get him, and as I mentioned before, Nikhil Bertrand, the T is before the R. So Bertrand, we'll see how Jimbo says it. Jimbo says things. Anyway, another giant human being in a position of need, basketball player, big guy. Let's see what he can do. Let's see what he can become. Punter. Oh, I got to grade it. You get four good guys. You didn't really need a plug-and-play guy, but any of these guys could really become plug-and-play. I got to give this an A. You got four guys. You touched all the positions inside and out. I mean, it's not an A+ because you didn't get like that has-to-play five-star like Kenyon Green. But this haul is so damn good based on what you already have. This is awesome. This is a great offensive line haul. Let's give it an A. Punter, Tyler White, supposedly has a great leg, according to Jimbo in his post-signing day presser. Right here it says he's the number one punter in the country. I mean, you got to give it an A+, right? You get the number one player in the country. You only really recruit one every couple of years. That's an A+. And let me just go ahead and whine and complain like Lane Kiffin right now. I hate that the rating brings down Texas A&M's overall rating. I mean, if you're the number one, relatively speaking, you should be like something neutral that doesn't bring or affect your rating. It should be like a 9.1. But I'm just, I'm whining like Lane. Quarterback, Marcel Reed. Speaking of Lane Kiffin, A&M flipped this kid in one of the last visit weekends of the cycle, much to Lane Kiffin's concern. But Marcel Reed, very raw, has a very promising arm talent. He's one of the few guys that I have watched a little bit of tape on. I'm really trying not to watch too much because I want to go into the videos I make for y'all totally raw. But he seems to have a very live, active arm without having to step into it. Just a very live arm, and he's athletic. Just a really good blank slate to get into your program, especially when you only had 2 scholarship guys there to begin with. He's a really good third piece to get. And I was of the opinion that this was a high priority position of need. Even though you had 2 guys already, you just really want that third guy to push the other 2 guys and then to develop behind them as well. So let's see what he becomes. Blank slate, getting into the system. Very exciting to get him. And, we got him late. Might not have had him. So, awesome. And, of course, Lane Kiffin took to Twitter right after he decommitted, retweeting Marcel's positive NIL tweets, showcasing that this kid only cares about NIL, and then adding Texas A&M in some NIL quote tweets. What a salty guy. What a whiny complainer Lane Kiffin is. And right now, Ole Miss sits at like 47th in the country in recruiting. That's good for like 13th in the SEC last I checked. So maybe Lane Kiffin needs to focus less on tweets and griping at Texas A&M and NIL. Focus more on his class. Because even with the competition that Texas A&M brings, even with NIL, you're doing 48th at Ole Miss. Dude, no one's coming to the SIP. Get your stuff together. And then the big one. Oh, I got to grade it. You didn't get the high-end guy, but you really didn't need the high-end guy because you have 2 serviceable guys right now. Based on the need, based on how everything went down, I'm going to give it a B+. Because you didn't think you were going to get a quarterback up until the very end. And to get this guy who has some good talent, I think that's a pretty big deal, especially to flip him from an in-conference, an in-division rival. So let's give that a B+. Really good grab late in the cycle. And then Ruben Owens, I've made a whole video about getting this guy committed. Absolute freak stud at running back. I believe he's one of the highest rated players Texas A&M signed, definitely in the top 20. Is he the highest rated running back Texas A&M has signed coming out of high school? You got Trey Williams. Rest in peace, DeMoss and Denver. He's up there. He's the 3rd highest running back A&M's ever signed. That's higher than Spiller and A-Chain. So let's see what Jimbo can do with a guy like this. And, Jimbo runs we'll see what system we run after. But Jimbo runs a very running back friendly system. Very run-heavy, balanced system where the running back gets involved in the receiving game as well. And this guy is the most talented running back he has had coming out of high school. So next year, I've said it before, I envision a 3-headed monster at running back, of which we haven't seen from Jimbo Fisher's time at Texas A&M. Think about like the way Georgia runs their running backs, kind of like a by-committee thing, go with the hot hand. I can really see that happening between Amari Daniels, Le'Veon Moss, and Ruben Owens. If he were to revert to the feature back system that he's run with Travion Williams, Spiller on his freshman year, but that was really because Jashaun Corbin got hurt, and then A-Chain the most recent year, I think the running back that would run away with that, if that were to happen again, would actually be Ruben Owens. He's that good. As promising as Le'Veon and Amari are, Ruben is that guy. You have to give this an A+, because it was a position of dire need. He's arguably the best running back in the country, and Jimbo's a running back guy. So this is like the perfect storm. This is an A+ signing, and it's the kind of signing that really changes the whole outlook on your class. Because when we didn't have Ruben, we weren't feeling so good. But now that we have Ruben, we're feeling a lot better. It's a complexion changer. A lot of people jumped onto the class after Ruben Owens committed, and you have to believe that played at least somewhat of a role, because that was momentum. So A+ signing, direct position of need, direct system match, and a great player. So A+ for the running back position. And then finally, the tight end position, one that we really didn't need. Well, we definitely didn't need, because you get 3 freshmen in your class last year, 3 very promising freshmen who can all play at some point, and then you get a 4th guy into that room. And, you've lost Blake Smith. You're probably going to lose Max Wright, and you get Jaden Platt, the aerospace engineer who, when he toured the school, talk to the Aerosmith engineer professors, and that was a big part of the pitch. Because you didn't need it, but you still got it, I think that bumps it up a grade, or at least part of a grade, in my opinion, because it wasn't a dire position need, but you got it anyway, and you got it late when you didn't think you were going to get one. Because of that, I'm going to give it a solid B. And huge shout out to Donovan Green, who was his mentor or guide on Jaden Platt's decision-turning visit. He was once committed to Stanford, I believe, and I think Shaw retiring had a big factor in him looking around and finding another program, eventually finding Texas A&M. But a quick segment on Donovan Green. Donovan Green is a good Aggie. This is the kid who, right after this season full of turmoil, immediately affirmed his confirmation to the program and specifically to the university. He's the kid who, in that 2022 class, once he committed, and he committed pretty early, started recruiting more kids out of that Houston area, and we know how that 2022 class went. It was Houston recruiting Houston, 2022s recruiting other 2022s, and he was at the forefront of that, next to Bobby Taylor. But it just seems like he's emerged as a leader so early, right away, and his production in year one was damn impressive, considering the ups and downs, the injuries he sustained. What a good guy, what a good Aggie, what a leader that you always desperately need on your football team, and to get it from such a young guy. Thank you, Donovan, for being you. So overall, so far, because this class can still change over time, I'm going to give this class a solid B+. And relative to the rest of the country, at 14th composite, you're about in the top 10 percentile there. That's technically an A based on the rest of the country. But based on expectations, based on conference, it knocks it down to, I think, a B+. Whereas 2022 was an A+, best you'll ever see. That's the top of the line. That's the A+. If you can get around the top 12, I think you're still around a B+, depending on who you sign. There are a couple of names out there that could change things a little bit. I think it's a quality class. It's a good class. It doesn't necessarily address that direct need at linebacker that you had. It doesn't really give you a plug-and-play corner, though it gives you two good corners that maybe could be plug-and-play. You don't know. But it doesn't give you that sure thing like you had in Denver Harris. But they could be that. You don't know yet. But just looking at it, the day or the week they sign, I'm giving it a B+. There's one more thing I wanted to touch on this video. And honestly, I probably should have led with it, because I think even more so than talking about these players, it's the biggest piece of news we got out of the day one of signing period. And that came in Jimbo Fisher's post-signing day presser. It kind of comes in the mid-afternoon after most of the players have signed. He was giving his spiel about all the players, giving his scouting report, his quick scouting report on each guy. Oh, this guy's at twitchy. This guy looks like an edge guy. This guy's going to play running back. This guy's going to play safety. Cool. But then when it came to Q&A time, someone asked him about the OC search. He said, no one yet. We're still searching. We want to find the right guy. And then the follow-up question was asked, would you be willing to give up the play calling for this guy? And Jimbo said, yeah, for the right guy. My plate is so full these days. I got to look at other things. There's so much going on. So that's the third time he has all but acknowledged that he's going to be giving this thing up. The first one came around App State, and it was asked a lot more indirectly than how it has the last couple of times. He was asked if his ego would get in the way of stepping aside from this play calling or stepping aside from the offense. He said, no, you can't have ego. You can't have ego in this game, yada, yada. Cool. He said that. That was good. I took it as a positive sign. Many Aggies, probably to this day, still don't think he's going to do it. But in the Jimbo Fisher radio show a couple of weeks ago, or maybe more like a month ago now, or 6 weeks ago, something like that, he was asked if it was more important for coaches to step into more of a CEO role, and he goes, yes, because with NIL and transfer portal, you got so many things you got to keep track on. You got this and that, and you got a lot on your plate now, which is so damn true that, I mean, this December has been crazy. And then this, on signing day, to even more direct, it seems like it's gotten more direct every time it's been brought up. I think that bodes very well for the future of this program. Because as I've been saying, yes, it's important who you hire, but I think it is more important than that Jimbo steps back from play calling and can focus on being a CEO, managing his coaching staff, inputting where needed, giving feedback where needed, and just being the head guy. The last coach to do it while calling plays was unfortunately Jimbo. So I get you not wanting to let go of that or hesitating to let go of that, but it seems like he's come to this. And I don't know if it's Ross Bjork pressuring him. I don't know if it's boosters pressuring him or what, but it really kind of feels like he's doing it at his own accord based on the trend over time and just based on the reality of how full these coaches' plates are, especially in this new college football world. But guys, that is the video. I want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'm actually going to see you one more time before the new year. I should have time to make a video. Hopefully we have some more signees to talk about. Hopefully we can hammer in Hicks and Tamuanu Pepe, but we'll see. That's, you got to do it. I counted them today, so if we don't sign them, you blame me. I'll take that fall. I'm a man. I'm 28. I can take it. But anyway, guys, y'all have a Merry Christmas. Please subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. Please like and comment. Give me any feedback. Was I too harsh with my grading? Was I too lenient? What grade do you give this class? So thanks, guys. Gig 'em.